What if the key to solving a modern company's toughest strategic problems wasn't in some business school textbook, but in a spiritual guide that's over 2,500 years old? I know, it sounds a little out there, right? But today, we're going to explore this really powerful kind of hidden connection between corporate strategy and ancient wisdom.
I mean, think about it. On one side, you've got the fast-paced world of quarterly earnings, market disruption, and shareholder value. And on the other, you have a path focused on ethics, mindfulness, and, well, the end of suffering. So what in the world could these two possibly have in common? Let's dive in and find out.
Okay, so first, let's ground ourselves in the world we know, modern management. We're going to start with a classic tool that some of you might already be familiar with, the McKinsey 7S framework.
This framework was actually developed way back in the 1980s, and it's basically a diagnostic tool for leaders. It gives them a way to look inside their organization and check if 7 supercritical elements are all playing nicely together to reach their goals.
So the way it works is it breaks a company down into 2 big buckets. You've got the hard S's. These are the tangible things you can point to, like your strategy, your organizational structure, and your systems. Then you have the soft S's, the more human side of things, like shared values, skills, and staff. Now here's the key. The whole idea is that for a company to really crush it, all 7 of these have to be perfectly in sync. Remember that idea of an interconnected system? It's going to be important.
All right, now we're going to take a pretty big leap, not just back in time, but across cultures too. Let's pivot to our second framework, which is a real cornerstone of Buddhist philosophy, the Noble Eightfold Path.
The Eightfold Path is one of the Buddha's most essential teachings, but it's not really a set of beliefs you have to subscribe to. Think of it more as a practical roadmap. It's made up of 8 practices that all link together, and they're designed to help people cultivate wisdom, act ethically, and train their minds to reach a state of real clarity.
And you can see here just how elegantly it's structured. Just like the 7S model, this isn't some random laundry list. It's a completely interconnected system. The 8 practices fall into 3 main pillars: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Each part strengthens all the others, creating this really holistic path for personal growth.
Okay, so we've got our modern corporate tool and our ancient spiritual guide. This is where it gets really interesting. Let's start laying them over each other and see where these 2 seemingly opposite worlds actually meet. And here they are, side by side. On the left, you've got a framework for personal enlightenment, built around ideas like mindfulness and intention. On the right, a corporate model for getting results, focusing on things like strategy and systems. At first glance, it feels like they're speaking 2 totally different languages. But what if they're actually trying to describe the very same core principles?
Let's start with our first connection. It's all about purpose. The Buddhist idea of right intention is all about the why behind your actions, committing to goodwill and doing no harm. Well, that maps perfectly onto McKinsey's shared values. These are the core principles that really define a company's soul and guide its culture. In both cases, this is the ethical bedrock that everything else is built on. Okay, next up, execution. In Buddhism, right speech and right action are huge. They demand that your words are truthful and your actions are constructive. Now think about a business's strategy. That's its plan of action. But if that strategy is built on shady practices or deception, what happens? It's a house of cards. It will eventually collapse, and it'll take the company's trust and reputation down with it.
Now this parallel is incredibly powerful, especially for leaders. Right concentration is the practice of having this deep, unwavering focus to gain insight and clarity. Well, isn't that the very core of an effective leadership style? A leader who's all over the place or constantly reacting just creates chaos. But a leader who can stay focused and calm, almost like a lighthouse in a storm, provides that stability and clarity their team desperately needs to handle any challenge. So what's the big takeaway from all this? These aren't just some cool philosophical fun facts. They actually offer a really practical blueprint for building better, more effective, and honestly, more human organizations. So let's look at how we can actually put this wisdom to work. This slide really brings it all home. When you bridge these 2 worlds, you get a roadmap for a much healthier organization. It's one that takes a holistic view, that's built on a strong ethical foundation, and is totally committed to getting better through mindful leadership and strong shared values. So, how can you actually start doing this? Well, first off, you foster ethical foundations. This means making integrity more than just a poster on the wall. It has to be baked into your strategy and everyday work. Second, you encourage mindful leadership by training your leaders to be focused and clear.
And third, you drive continuous improvement by building systems that actually support learning and adapting over time.
When you get right down to it, this whole comparison just shows that strategy and soul don't have to be two different things. By bringing in this kind of ancient wisdom, we can build companies that aren't just successful, but are also sustainable, ethical, and truly human. So, I'll leave you with a question to mull over. If your organization's strategy had a soul, what would it look like?